Hi everyone. This class is going to be short and sweet. Another kind of get moving flow sort of idea where we'll get started on movement fairly quickly and move through a practice that's anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. It's hard for me to time it just right, but we'll try to stick with something a little bit shorter for those of you that have a hard time setting aside a full hour or hour and a half for your practice. For this first practice that we're going to do, you'll want a bolster and a strap, or the other options for those would be a stack of towels to replace the bolster. We're going to use it to support the hips. So 4 or 5 thick towels stacked up one on top of the other that you can rest your hips on top of, and then a strap, or you could also use a belt or a long towel. Whatever works for you. Okay, so we're going to start off on our backs, but we'll be propped up over the bolster or your stack of towels. You're going to come to sit up onto it and then walk your hands back behind you. You can lift your hips here and just sort of scoop the butt a bit forward and then re-land the back of your pelvis on the bolster. Walk your hands down, lower your upper body down. And then come into a rest position over top of the bolster. You could have your feet hips distance, or you could walk the feet just a bit wider than the hips and let the knees knock in towards each other, whatever your preference. And slowing the breath down. And taking the breath all the way down into the abdomen. And feeling the belly lift on the inhale. And lowering on the exhale. Feeling the low back puff into the bolster a bit on the breath in. And draw back into the body on the breath out. And continuing to breathe here, taking the breath up into the sides of the ribs. Trying to expand and widen the ribs as you breathe in. And a little bit of effort into your side ribs and front ribs on the breath out. Just a little extra push for that exhale. Slow breath in, and a complete breath out. Your next inhale fills belly, widens the ribs, and now lifts the sides of the chest. In your exhale, belly softens, ribs narrow, chest descends. And continuing to breathe here. Letting the face soften and the lips part just a little. And trying to soften the space between the eyebrows. And letting your body ground down into the support and into your practice. And then begin to walk your feet in a little closer to your hips. You can reach the arms wide to the side or into a letter A shape, and then draw one knee up and then the other. Just sort of wiggle your hips so that you feel stable on the support beneath you. And then you're going to leave the knees bent and your legs at about a 90 degree. From here, begin to slowly shift your weight into your right hip. Let your knees knock over to the right just a little. And then come back through center and all the way over to the left. So we're not going very far, especially if you've got your hips on a stack of towels. You're just kind of gently shifting the weight from one hip to the other, just to wake up the muscles in the side body surrounding the low back. And continuing to just gently tick-tock the legs from side to side. And then press the feet a little bit further forward. Draw the knees back. Using the strength of the belly to do that, press the feet forward. And draw the knees back. So this time shifting the weight of the pelvis into the tailbone as you press the feet away. And then into the belt line as you draw the knees back. Just a couple more shifts forward and back here. So we've made this sort of cross shape. We went side to side, now forward and back. Now we're going to make a big circle around those points. So you can press your feet forward and then shift your hips just slightly to the right. Draw your knees in towards your chest. Come through center, shift your weight to the left slightly and press the feet away. So we're making a really tiny little circle around the sacrum, the flat bone at the back of the pelvis. So we're slowly circling in one direction. And the next time your legs come back towards center, towards your chest, pause there, and then shift your weight in the opposite direction. Slowly circling, feeling a little bit of effort coming from those belly muscles. Not a big movement, but just enough to wake up the belly. Take 2 more circles here. And then the next time your feet come back at center, release your feet onto the floor. Walk the feet in just a little bit closer to your hips. Lift your hips up and pull the bolster out. You can set it off to one side. And then let your hips come to land back onto the floor. Take a slow inhale, filling out the low back. And a complete exhale, letting the belly soften back. And 2 more breaths here. And then begin to heel toe your feet to be about in line with your sit bones and just a little further away. We're not jamming them in as close to the sit bones as possible here. Give yourself a little bit of space. And then from here, turn your palms down, bring them down along either side of your hips. Grab onto the sides of your mat just for a moment and then pull the mat apart. Walk one shoulder underneath you and then the other, and then lift your chest up tall, re-land the flats of your shoulder blades onto the floor, and then you can release the mat. Just bring your hands back alongside your hips. Firm pressure through fingertips, arms all the way up into the shoulder blades. Pressing so much through the shoulder blades that you're feeling the sides of your chest lift up just a little. A little bit of pressure from the back of the skull into the floor, and just being sure that there is a curve behind the neck. So we're not flattening the neck into the floor at all. The chin's level with the ceiling, and there's a little bit of that natural curve behind the back of the neck. Begin to notice your feet and press the feet into the floor. Spread your toes, draw up through the arches, and then push the feet down. Press the arm bones down, lift your hips up into a gentle bridge. So we're not going as high into our bridge as we possibly can here. Really, it's just about waking up the glutes. Pausing here for a couple of breaths. And just begin to notice where you're feeling the work here. We won't hold this one very long. And lowering the hips slowly back down to the floor. Give yourself a little pause. Were you feeling that in your hamstrings and your glutes in the back, maybe all three, or maybe one area a little bit more than the other? We're going to try and balance the work here a little. Pressing back into the feet, lift up through your hips, and just be aware of what's happening through the low back. If you're feeling any compression in the low back, try to lengthen your tailbone towards the backs of your knees just a little bit and squeeze from the bum a little bit more. If you're feeling the low back and the glutes fairly well, but not the hamstrings, continue to press the feet into the floor and then create a little sense of dragging your heels towards your hips, even though they're not going to go anywhere. And pause here to breathe. Continuing to use the breath now to lift the sides of the chest a little higher. One more breath in. And on the breath out, slowly lowering the hips back down. And pausing to rest here. One more time, pressing the soles of the feet into the floor. Pressing the shoulder blades into the floor, lifting the sides of your chest, and then squeeze the bum to lift the hips up. And then push down so firmly through those shoulder blades, lifting the sides of the chest that you feel that the arms could lighten up a little bit. On your next breath in, reach the arms up towards the ceiling and all the way back towards the wall behind you. On the breath out, push the hands forward through space, slowly lower the arms back down. Inhale to lift up through the arms, reaching them back towards the wall behind you. Exhale, press the hands forward through space, squeeze the hands all the way back down towards the floor. Inhale to lift. And exhale to lower the arms and the hips back down this time. One more breath in. Full breath out. Another breath in. On the breath out, squeeze and lift the hips up. Pausing here. Pressing the shoulder blades into the floor until you feel the sides of your chest lift. Again, not flattening the back of the neck here. Begin to inhale as you reach the hands forward, up towards the ceiling, and then back behind you. Exhale, press the hands forward and all the way back down. Inhale to lift. Exhaling to lower. Inhale to lift. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift the arms back up. Exhale, lower them all the way down to the floor, lowering your hips. From here, walk your feet just a little wider than your hips. Knock the knees in towards each other. You can take the arms into a wider letter T or letter A shape here, and then just begin to slowly rock the legs from side to side. Your windshield wipers. The next time you knock your knees over to one side, roll to your side, press yourself up. And then come into a tabletop on your mat. Hands beneath shoulders, knees beneath hips. Take a moment here to just move the spine in all directions. So finding a little bit of side bend so you can wag your tail to the left and look to the left like you're trying to look back at your tail. And then wag your tail over to the right. Draw your right shoulder towards your right hip and then look to the right. Coming back through center, wag your tail to the left as you look to the left, squeeze the armpit towards the hip. Come back through center, side bend to the right, look to the right, right armpit squeezes to right hip. Come back to center, one more time to the left, looking to the left, and then come all the way back to center. Take an inhale, lift up through the tailbone, lengthen the belly, reach the heart forward, look forward. On the exhale, tuck your tail, press the floor away, round your spine. Inhale, tailbone lifts, belly lengthens, shoulders draw away from the ears. Exhale, press the floor away, pull the belly in, tuck your chin. Inhale, lift the heart up as you lift the tail. Exhale, press the floor away as you tuck the chin to your chest. Coming back to your neutral spine. And then from here, just take a moment to move sort of intuitively. You can bend the elbows, wag the hips from side to side, shift the rib cage. Any little movement that helps you sort of get into any of those little nooks and crannies of the spine, the hips, the waistline, anything that your body's sort of asking for here. And then coming back to center into your tabletop. Now spin your right shin off on a 45. Step your left foot to the back of your mat. Sole of the foot lands. Draw your left arm up like you're pulling back on a bow and arrow. Really squeeze that left shoulder blade back and then lift up through the backs of your fingernails up to the ceiling. Begin to stretch that left arm overhead as you really point out through the toe of your left foot, keeping that foot grounded. Stretch out the whole left side body. And then square your chest back down to the floor. Keep reaching through the fingers as the hand comes to land. Shift your left knee back. Coming back. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Press the floor away. Inhale, tabletop. Spin your left shin off on a 45. Step your right foot back. Again, pull back on that imaginary bow and arrows. You draw the right arm up, reaching through the back of your hand, and then finally out through the fingertips. Stretch your right arm overhead as you really point through the toe of your right foot. Reach those fingertips away from your right toes. And then square your chest towards the floor. Keep reaching through the right fingertips as you slowly begin to land the hand. Land your right shin, come back to center. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, tabletop. Right shin spins off on a 45, left foot steps back, left arm bows up towards the ceiling, comes straight overhead, pointing out through the toes, reaching through the fingers, square your chest back to the floor. Left knee bends, returns to the mat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, neutral. Left shin spins off, right foot steps back, right arm bows back up. Stretch the arm overhead, keep reaching through the hand, keep the motion going as you square your chest back to the floor, land your hand. Right shin returns. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, table. Right shin spins off, left foot steps back, slowly reach up through the left arm, take it overhead. This time pausing here for a moment, scoop up the back of the head with your hand, then reach back through the left elbow a little bit to open up the heart a little bit more. Breathing here. Stretch out through the fingers, slowly square your chest back to the floor. Left shin returns. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, tabletop. Left shin spins off, right foot steps back, right arm reaches up, comes overhead, and then scoop up the back of the head, lean the right elbow back. That right shoulder blade is scooping the heart up as you lean the head back into the hand. Breathing here. Reach out through the fingers, slowly square your chest back to the floor. Right shin returns. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, tabletop. Tucking the toes, come back into your hands for a moment. Press the fingertips firmly into the floor until you see the nail beds whiten. Toes are tucked, and then hover the shin bones up. Begin to press the heels back towards the floor. They don't have to land. As you press your heels back, your sit bones begin to lift up, straightening out through the legs, pressing your chest back. And then bend your knees, slowly coming back down to land. Untuck your toes, sit back onto your heels, walk your hands back. Hands come to rest on your thighs. Stretch the right arm forward, up, and back as you twist to the right. Right arm reaches overhead, comes all the way back to the right thigh. Left arm stretches forward, up and back as you twist to the left. Right arm comes back overhead, left hand lands. Right arm stretches forward, up and back as you twist to the right. Right hand returns. Left arm reaches forward, up and back, twist to the left. And left arm slowly circles back to land onto the thighs. Walk your hands forward again. Return the palms underneath the shoulders, tuck your toes, hover your shins, press the heels towards the floor as you lift your sit bones up, straightening out through the legs, press your chest back. From here, lift up tall through the heels. Then land the heels back towards or onto the floor. Draw up through the toes, pressing the balls of the feet heavily into the floor. Land the toes, lift the heels, bend the knees. Slowly shift your shin bones back down onto the floor. Untuck your toes. Draw your hands back onto your thighs. Stretch the arms forward and up. Interlace the hands. Press the hands up towards the ceiling. Wag your tail to the left. Lean to the left as you press out through the heel of your right hand. And come back through center. Wag your tail to the right. Press out through the heel of your left hand. Come back to center. Press up through the palms. Wag your tail to the left side. Bend to the left, squeezing left armpit towards left hip and left hip towards left armpit. Come back through center. Side bend to the right. Press out through the heel of your right hand. And again, right armpit squeezes to right hip towards right armpit. And come back to center. Release the hands. Walk the hands forward. Tuck the toes. Hover your shins. Begin to straighten up through the legs, sending your chest back toward your thighs. 2 breaths here. Look to the top of your mat. Step your feet up. Take flat back, hands coming up the shins, halfway lift. Bend the knees to release to forward fold, letting your arms dangle for a moment. Begin to tuck your tail, bend your knees a little bit more, push down through the heels as you pull up through the belly, keep your chin towards your chest as the ribs stack over the hips, the arms reach wide and high, squeeze the biceps up towards the ears, reaching out through the fingers, then press the palms away from one another as you slowly dive forward, a little bit of a shrug back of the shoulder blades towards each other as you fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift, exhale, fold. Bend your knees, land your hands, step back to your plank. From knees or toes, lower to the belly. Untuck your toes. Take the fingertips to either side of the mat and spread them out nice and wide. So you're coming up onto fingers, I call these spider fingers. Elbows widen to the sides. Your chest and face are just hovering above the floor. Take a breath in. And a breath out. One more breath in. On the breath out, right shoulder rolls in. Look out over the left shoulder. Inhale, center. Left shoulder rolls in. Look out over the right shoulder. Inhale, center. Exhale, land the chest, hands to either side of the ribs. Press yourself back, child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat pose, tuck your toes, lift your hips, down dog. 2 breaths here. Look to the top of your mat. Step your feet up, flat back. Hands coming up your shins for a halfway lift. Find a little draw back of the shoulder blades here. Bend your knees to release to forward fold. Bend your knees even more. Scoop your tail down as you pull the belly up. Push your feet through the floor. Ribs stacking over hips, arms reaching wide. Biceps hug towards ears. Press the hands away from one another. Thighs back, heart forward as you fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees, land your hands. Step back to plank. From knees or toes, lower to the belly. Untuck your toes. Spider the fingertips, take them wider than your mat. Elbows flare out. Chest and head are hovering. Take a breath in. On the breath out, right shoulder rolls inward. Look out over the left shoulder. Inhale, center. Exhale, left shoulder rolls inward. Look out over the right shoulder. Inhale, center. Exhale, land the chest. Press yourself back to child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat. Tuck your toes, lift your hips. Downward facing dog. Look to the top of your mat. Step your feet up, flat back. Forward fold. Bend your knees, push the feet down, pull the belly up as you rise up one vertebrae at a time. Arms reach wide and high. Squeeze the arms up towards the ears, then press the hands away, bending the knees, folding forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees, land your hands, step back to your plank. From knees or toes, lower to the belly. Untuck your toes. Spider the fingertips wider than the mat, elbows flare out. Take a breath in. On the breath out, right shoulder rolls in. Look out over the left shoulder. Inhale, center. Exhale, left shoulder rolls in. Look out over the right. Inhale, center. Lift up through the chest a little higher now. And then exhale, slowly land the heart back down. Hands to either side of the ribs. Press yourself back. Child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat pose. Tuck your toes. Lift your hips. Down dog. Shift your weight into your left foot. Take a slow rise up through the right leg. Open the hip, bend the knee. Square the hips, hug the knee towards your nose. Step your right foot to your right thumb. Get a little heavier into your left fingertips. Bow that right arm, bow and arrow that right arm all the way back up once again. And then take the arm overhead all the way down to the outside of your right foot. Spin your back foot in. Left arm reaches forward. Now circle the arms all the way up. Warrior two. Shrug the shoulders down. Reach through the crown of the head. Exhale, cartwheel the arms back down. Untuck the back foot. Right foot steps back. Lower to the belly. Untuck the toes. Spider the fingertips. Take a breath in. Breath out. Right shoulder rolls in. Look over the left. Inhale, center. Exhale, left shoulder rolls in. Look over the right. Inhale, center. Lift up taller through the chest. Exhale, land the chest. Hands to either side of the ribs. Press yourself back. Child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat. Tuck your toes. Lift your hips. Down dog. Shift your weight to the right foot. Slow rise of the left leg. Open the hip, bend the knee. Square the hips around the spine, knee towards nose. Left foot to left thumb. Heavier into your right fingers now. Stretch bow and arrow the left arm up. And then take that arm overhead all the way down to the outside of the left foot. Back foot spins in. Right arm reaches forward. Circle your arms up. Warrior two, just for a breath. Shoulders draw down. crown lifts up. Slow motion cartwheel back to the floor on the exhale. Unplug your back foot. Left foot steps back, lower to the belly. Untuck your toes, shoulders draw down, chest lifts up. Land the chest. Forgot our spider fingers. Walk the hands wide to the side of the mat. Flare the elbows out. Take a breath in. On the breath out, right shoulder rolls in. Look over the left shoulder. Inhale, center. Left shoulder rolls in. Look over the right. Inhale, center. Rise up a little higher. Exhale, drip the heart forward. Hands to either side of the ribs. Press yourself back. Child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat. Tuck your toes. Lift your hips. Downward facing dog. Shift your weight to your left foot. Slow rise of the right leg. Open the hip, bend the knee. Squeeze inner thighs to square your hips. Right foot steps forward. Pausing here. Left fingers are heavy. Right arm stretches forward and up. Circle the arm back down to the floor. Take it to the outside of the right foot. Back foot spins in. Left arm stretches forward and up. Circle your way up. Warrior two. And then straighten out through that front leg. Spin your right toes in to match the left toes. And then take your hands onto your hips. Actually, take your hands to your hip creases. So finding that hip crease at the front of, or the top of your thigh. You're gonna have just your index fingers pressing into the hip creases a little bit, and then lift your heart up and away from your fingers. Bend your knees just slightly, and then begin to reach your bum back as you fold over your fingers so you're hinging from your hips rather than folding from your spine. If you just come to here or even here, that's fine. But we just want to avoid excessive rounding in the back. That's not what we're going for in this pose. So thighs back, heart forward, folding forward, knees can be bent. It's not about the hamstrings today. And then walk your hands down onto the floor. If you need, you could bring the floor to you by using a couple blocks here. Pausing here to breathe. Create a sense of drawing the shoulder blades down the back and dragging your fingertips back towards the back of the room, reaching through the crown of the head. And then from here, bend your knees even more if you need to, and then lower the head down, allowing the weight of the head to get a little heavier towards the floor. One more breath in, lifting up through the chest. On the breath out, shrug the shoulders down the back. From here, rock forward onto the balls of your feet. Lift the heels up a little bit and then spin your heels in towards each other so that you're in that toe out, heel in stance. From here, release the heels back onto the floor. Shift your weight back into your hips a little, round your spine now. Tuck your tail, slowly begin to rise up. Arms reach forward and up. Coming into cactus arms, bending your knees to arrive in your goddess pose. Pausing here to breathe. One more breath in. On the breath out, straighten through the legs, reach up through the arms. Left toes turn in, right toes turn out. Lower the arms back down to warrior two. Cartwheel the arms back to the floor. Unplug your back foot. Right foot steps back, lower to the belly. Untuck your toes. Rise up through the chest, low cobra. Land the chest. Walk your fingertips a little wider than the mat. Elbows flare out. Take a breath in. On the breath out, right shoulder rolls in. Look out over the left. Inhale, center. Exhale, left shoulder rolls in, look out over the right. Inhale, center. Lift up a little higher. Exhale, land the heart. Hands to either side of the ribs. Press yourself back. Child's pose. Glue your hands to the floor. Round your spine forward through cat pose. Tuck your toes, lift your hips. Downward facing dog. Shift your weight to the right. Slow rise of the left leg. Open the hip, bend the knee. Square the hips. Round the spine, hug the knee towards the nose. Left foot to left thumb. Heavier into your right fingers. Left arm reaches forward and up. Slowly reach that arm all the way back down to the floor to the outside of your left foot. Spin your back foot in. Right arm stretches forward, rise all the way up. Warrior two. Straighten up through the front leg. Spin your left toes in to match the right. Hands come onto your hip creases once again. Bend your knees a little if needed. Begin to reach back through the sit bones, forward through the heart as you fold forward over those fingertips. And then walk your hands down onto the floor. Drag your fingertips back. Reach your heart forward. And then bending from the elbows, folding forward a little further, or you can opt to stay in that first shape. Rising back up, finding a long spine. Shift your weight heavier into the balls of your feet. Lift your heels up. Spin your heels in. Ground down through the heels. Bend your knees a lot. Tuck your tail. Pull the belly up and in as you round your way up. Arms reach forward and up. Then elbows bend. Down in line with shoulders. Fingernails and elbows. Forearms pressing into an imaginary wall behind you. You can settle a little lower into your squat or stay higher into your squat if that means you can stay a little more stacked over the pelvis, rather than flaring the chest out and sending the tail back. One more breath in. Straighten up through the legs, reach up through the arms. Right toes turn in, left toes turn out. Lower back down, warrior two. Cartwheel the arms to the floor, unplug your back foot. Left foot steps back. Lower to the belly. Untuck your toes. Rise up through the chest. Low cobra. Land your chest. Fingertips walk wider than the mat. Elbows flare out. Take a breath in. On the breath out, right shoulder rolls in. Look out over the left. Inhale, center. Exhale, left shoulder rolls in. Look out over the right. Inhale, center. Lift up a little higher. Exhale to land the chest. Hands to either side of your ribs. Press yourself back to child's pose to stay. Option to take the knees wide here since we're here for a few more minutes. Lift up through the head, walk your hands back, and then we'll spin the shins off to one side, come down onto your back, and have your belt or your towel, whatever you're going to use for your strap, close by. Give your back a moment to settle in this shape here, starting off with knees bent and feet flat on the floor. And from here, reaching for your strap, find the center of your strap, and then draw your right knee in towards your chest. Loop the center of your strap around the arch of your foot a little higher up towards the ball, not down all the way towards your heel. And then lift your leg, your right leg, up towards the ceiling. Keep a generous knee bend here. And then you can have your arms slide down the towel or strap or belt as far as you can so that you can do your best to let the upper body rest a little here so that your shoulders and chest muscles aren't working too hard. Pausing here to breathe. And then think of your right sit bone grounding down in the direction of the floor. It's not going to touch or anything, but you're rooting it down towards the floor, almost like you're coming into a little back bend through the low back, but there won't be quite that much lift. We're just keeping the sit bone heading in the direction of the floor to open up through the hamstrings a little bit more. So you're keeping that right sit bone rooted down, your right knee is bent, and then you're just going to straighten your leg just as much as your body needs today. You might go to a completely straight leg, or it might stay bent. As you're straightening the leg or taking it towards straight, think of reaching up through the back of your Achilles towards the ceiling, spreading out through the toes a little, and then soften the knee, release, slacken that hamstring, and slowly breathe. You might feel the back pressed a little bit into the floor here. Just breathe into that sensation. And then coming back to that rooting down of the sit bone, finding a little tip forward through the pelvis. Reach up through the back of your Achilles. Pressing up through the sole of the foot, straightening the leg, and then maybe drawing the leg a little closer to your chest. We don't want the hip lifting up super high. We also don't want to overstretch the hamstrings. So just coming even a few inches closer to the chest might considerably change the sensation in the back of your leg. So just honoring what you're feeling. Slacken the knee a little bit. And then press back up through the through the heel. And then coming back into more of a neutral shape with the leg. So if you were drawing it towards your chest a little bit, you can release it away from your chest. And then we'll pass the strap into the right hand. I'm just realizing I don't have quite enough room on my right side. So left arm is going to come to the left. Your right upper arm is still grounding towards the floor, and then slowly reach your right leg to the right. Now, it's stopping me here. You could take it towards the floor. It's kind of convenient for me, actually. It makes it a little bit more restorative. But you can take the leg towards the floor, or you can keep it lifted up fairly high, because you really want to be listening to, and by listening, I mean really sensing and feeling the sensation in the inner thighs and hamstrings here. They're challenging our adductors and hamstrings at the same time. And we don't want to overtax those muscles, especially if it's been a little bit since you've stretched them out. And slowly lifting back up through your right leg, finding a squeeze from the inner thigh now, engaging the muscle you just lengthened, and then passing the strap into your left hand, reaching your right arm wide to the side. To start off, I'm going to keep my right hip grounded as I draw the leg across the midline and over towards the left. So my hip, it's lifting very slightly, like maybe, a centimeter off the floor here. But for the most part, my pelvis is staying pretty grounded down. And for that, the reason for that is we want to open up this lateral hip and thigh region. It's going to land in the sensation's going to land in different areas for different people, because we tend to hold our restrictions in different areas, and our anatomy can play a role in that. So pausing here to breathe, keeping the right hip grounded. You could sickle the right ankle a little bit and you'll get a little bit more of a stretch into the outer lower leg as well. And drawing the outer foot back towards the outer shin. You could stay here, or you could straighten your left leg and then take the leg to the floor this time, still holding on to the strap, reaching out through the right hand, coming into a nice twist. Really inflating the ribs here, getting those T-spine joints lubed up. And slowly drawing that leg back through center, taking it back up towards the ceiling. Bend your left knee, sole of the foot returns to the floor, and then unravel the strap from your right foot. And then just pause. I always like to take a little bit of time to sense the shift in sensation from one side to the next. Just noticing what it feels like to have really engaged and worked and opened one side compared to the other. You can kind of feel that energy flow a little bit better through the one side. And then finding the center of your strap once again. Draw your knee in towards your chest and just loop the strap around the arch of the foot up a little closer to the ball. And then allowing your hands to slide down the strap. Having a generous bend in your knee here. I have a natural tendency to want to go immediately to stick straight legs because I've got long hamstrings. So bending your knee. Rooting down through that left sit bone. You might find a subtle arch in the lobe spine here. And then keeping that left sit bone grounded, begin to press up through the back of your heel towards the ceiling. And then slackening the knee once again, releasing some of that effort. Breathing into the low back. And drawing the foot or the thigh a little closer to you. Still grounding down through the sit bone, and begin to reach up through the back of the Achilles, taking the legs toward, or the leg towards straight, doesn't have to completely straighten, honoring the sensations in your body. Bending the knee once again, slackening that tissue, slowing the breath down, and then allowing the leg to come back to a more neutral stance. So that might be a little further for some people too. Like if you're not as open, especially if you maybe are a runner, if you're not as open through the backs of your hamstrings, your leg might be here, and that's totally fine. I'm going to pass the strap into my left hand. Right arm reaches to the right. And then slowly let my leg open up to the left, letting the upper arm come to the floor and letting the left leg come towards the floor. I don't have that shelf in the way now, so I'm able to get a bigger stretch through my left inner thigh, but not forcing a stretch. Slowly lifting that leg back up, feeling the inner thigh engage, and then pass the strap into your right hand. Left arm comes to the left now. Continue with the left leg crossing the midline, but keep the left hip grounded. And you can see a little better on this side now that I'm not letting my hip come up here at all. It may be a very slight lift just because I've shifted the weight a little heavier to one side, but you're still working to ground that hip down to the floor. to open up. See, on the opening up through the lateral hip. And what I was about to say before I jumbled my words is the sensation's landing in a completely different spot for me on this side. So that's why it's so interesting to really notice those shifts from one side to the other. And you could stay here, or you could straighten your right leg. Continue to take this leg across center. I can't go all the way down this time. And then just finding a nice twist here. And widening the ribs with your breath. And slowly drawing the leg back to center. Bending your right knee, landing the foot back onto the floor, and then releasing the left foot. You can set your strap off to the side now. And before we move anywhere, just again sensing the shift in sensation. And what do you feel in your legs? When we begin to notice those restrictions that we might have, for me, what I'm feeling right now is definitely more balanced from one side to the other, but I know that if this were my own practice right now, I would have hung out with my left leg a little bit more. There's a little more restriction happening in this left hip, and I can feel that it wants more, whereas the right side feels pretty content right now. And then if there's any other little movements that you like to complete your practice with, like drawing your knees in towards your chest or taking a happy baby, or for me, I love to just rock from side to side with my knees in towards my chest, sort of a hybrid happy baby knees to chest pose. As you really begin to slow the practice down here, preparing for Shavasana, try to let your thoughts almost weigh themselves to the back of your mind, the back of your head. Almost as like if you could imagine them as fish food. Is one of my favorite images with this kind of a thing is if you imagine that you've just sprinkled some fish food into a fish tank, and then you're watching those little bits of fish food or your thoughts slowly drift and get heavier towards the bottom of the fish tank. Think of that as your mind. So all those little thoughts that want to creep in, it's okay, but just let them kind of float, let them be in the background, let them get a little heavier to the back of your head, so that they're not taking you out of that deep relaxation we're moving towards. And coming back to center, release your feet to the floor if you've got them lifted. Lengthen out through your legs. Take up as much room as you need. You may wish to press the back of the head into the floor and then draw the shoulders down the back, re-land onto the flats of your shoulder blades. And let the body rest. If you have time for a longer Shavasana, just give the video a pause here and just come straight back into your Shavasana and take as much time as you like. Otherwise, bend your knees, return the feet to the floor, shift your hips to one side, and slowly make your way up. Coming into a cross-legged seat or a kneeling shape, whatever seated position feels good right now. Prayer your hands at your heart. Thank yourself for practicing. Namaste.